Now, as this is the 16th video, I thought I'd do something a little bit interesting. And I was taking out the little chip that controls the sound, which is a FM synthesizer chip, and making an instrument out of that. I thought it'd be pretty cool, but there's something a little bit more immediate I have to do, so 16th video isn't going to be actually this thing, which I thought would have been pretty cool. But if anyone still wants to see this, I'll probably be doing it later. Alright, so let's get started with what I'm actually going to be doing today. Alright, so typical foam cutters you see out there is simply going to be like a bracket that looks maybe like that. And there's a little piece of wire hanging down in between two supports. And this wire is Nichrome wire. And this is going to heat up. And when this heats up to a certain temperature, like 300 degrees Celsius or whatever it may be, it's going to be able to cut through plastic. Alright, simply melt it and it'll go right through. But the issue here is we don't want a temperature to be so high that it burns the material instead of melts it. So what I'm going to do here is try to achieve this kind of setup in my house right here with what I have. So quite simply, this stuff isn't that hard. In terms of the circuit, there's only really 2 or 3 things you need to worry about, right? The first thing here is going to be the power supply, and I'm going to denote the power supply rails as plus V and minus V. And this is going to be typically, 12 volts, or you can make it variable, which is going to make your life easier. But I have a fixed 12 volt supply right there. And that was used for my Kenwood. And it could also be used here. So that power supply then goes, in my case, I think I'm going to put it through this on the ground, which is a variable resistor I made in a previous video. Probably in its description somewhere you'll find it. And so this variable resistor is going to hang out, somewhere. And then this piece of wire now, just going to mark it like that, is this wire right there. Alright, again, this is Nichrome, and this is also Nichrome, so when you heat stuff up, they're both going to heat at the same time, so you got to be careful what you're doing here. And the idea here is that I'm going to mark this point V1 and this point V2, or just ground. And the voltage I drop across here is going to be dependent on our power supply voltage, and the voltage dropped across this variable resistor. And this voltage then in turn affects the amount of current you can, allow to flow through this entire thing. And that's going to affect the amount of power dissipated by this whole system. And by controlling that, then you get a change in temperature of the wire. So that's the purpose of this piece right here. And if you haven't watched this already, go watch that video first. And in this video, all I'm going to be doing is putting together this like 3-element circuit here. Right, so the resistor again is right there, power supply is over there, I have a connecting cable right here. This is going to be some solid wire that you can use to power the circuit, right? And it just so happens that if you take a look at my power supply, this is one of those 12 volt, like 20 amps or 20, this is like 29 amps or whatever it is they advertise it for. It'll give you plenty of current to drive anything you want, really. So your high voltage input goes in right here, so, when it's on, don't touch it. And then you've got plus volt, minus volt on here, and you have a little trim on the side where you can adjust the voltage if you so desire. And the weird thing here is that this Euro plug just happens to be the exact spacing right there between the two terminals. That's one across, and those 2 free ones happen to be a plus and minus, so I was like, hey, bingo, we got something here. So I'm just gonna hold this here down with tape, and it's gonna be a temporary fix for my power supply, because I really only need to cut one item, and that is this acrylic sheet, which is for another project, which you'll probably find a link for in the description when I finish it. But I gotta cut this weird shape out of it, and to do that, the saw didn't work. I used a hammer to just knock pieces off of this other end. Not very pretty, so I think heat cutter or hot wire cutter will definitely be a nice addition here. Alright, so I think I've got most of this set up. I've got the power supply, the positive lead. If you follow that, that goes to one end of the variable resistor, and that variable resistor gets outputted to this terminal here, which I have the Nichrome wire cutting element wrapped around, and that goes into this wire here, and this clamp here is just for support. So I just have the cutting surface, or the wire, suspended right there, so I can hopefully maybe just kind of, you know, lightly touch the plastic here, and hopefully it'll melt and cut, right? So this lead there goes into this lead, which is the multimeter positive, right there. Goes into the ammeter, comes out, and it runs around and back to the power supply. And right now I've got the resistor here set to somewhere random, halfway. Most of the voltage should be dropped across this section of wire and not that. Alright, I think we're just about ready to go. I've got the power switch here where I can actually access it. And I've also got a fan running right here. And this this fan has a duct attached to it, and it goes out the window over there. So which should be good in terms of ventilation. There's a bit of activated carbon inside here, so it should clean up any of the gunk that may be released from whatever acrylic is. And now I think we're just about ready to go, right? I can just hold that fan over close to there, and the fumes should go away. Turn it on. And we have 0 current now. Why is that? That is because that's not on. That's on. Now that's on. Okay, now we've got half an amp going through the wire. I've got one of these little things here. They're not too good, to be honest, at detecting small spots like that, but we're gonna have to wait quite a while if we're gonna leave it at half an amp. So I'm gonna go ahead, turn it off, and move the clip up just a little bit. Alright, and let's start this up again. And now we're much closer to 1 amp of current at 12 volts. That is, well, I could say 12 watts, but it's not going to be really, because that's dissipated over the resistor and the wire. And 25, 27, this is horribly awful. There's the laser. It doesn't help because the laser isn't accurate. I gotta do like a review of these. These are quite horrible, but they can be helpful in some ways. The wire's handling just fine, so let's see, let's go up to 2 amps and see how that goes. Alright, sorry, the SD card ran out of memory. I'm doing 4 gig SD cards. They're a pain, but I've got so many of them. Alright, back at it. 1.5 amps. And I do expect to have to wait a little while, at least, for this to heat up. But 1.5 amps through this amount of wire, I'm thinking should be a reasonable amount of current to heat this up to some workable temperature. Right, so I'm going to leave this sitting for some time. We could check time right now. It's 11:45 p.m. No, this is in the wrong time zone. Goodness, 10:45. So I'll give it 5 minutes or so to warm up, and we'll check how it's going. Alright, this is 5 minutes later, and it doesn't look like we've made much progress. Hold on, 29 degrees from what this is saying, so we've made a progress 3 degrees. Right there. 3.8 amps, look at that. Okay, that's beautiful. Oops. Okay, so 3 amps, it glows orange. So that's interesting. That's why you use Kapton tape, because it's not supposed to melt on you. But we don't need 3 amps. We probably need 2. So why don't I move it over 2.5 amps. Okay, it's not glowing yet. And see, this is the value of having a variable resistor, because if you hook that up 3 amps and it just goes orange and, you know, falls on things, that's not very good. Is it going to melt anything? Yeah, it is. It's melting through the acrylic. You can see, ooh, smoke. Focus. Focus. You can see that little melt right there. So, this is hot enough. This temperature thing is obviously not even close to picking up whatever temperature it is, because the melting point I found out on Wikipedia was 120 to 180 degrees Celsius. And so, since this is good, I'll cut this piece. Alright, so that cut straight through. And, yep, just careful with the fan. You can see this U-shaped, U-shaped the cut out of there. And you can take that right off. Ta-da! That's the first cut. Looks pretty nice. Alright, so it's clear I have a long way to go if I'm gonna cut that whole entire piece out, so let's better get started. This experiment is already turning out to be reasonably good. I do smell a little bit of plastic, but you know, that's what the fan is for. Can you even see it in the camera? Maybe not. So I'm going to go ahead and take another bite out of this. I'll just take small bites out of this, because I push it, this whole apparatus is not, you know, securely hooked up anywhere. So it's going to flop around if I push it too hard. So I'll just take small chunks out of it like I was doing before. So I'm just going to slide. I can slide that back and forth. I'm going to push in towards my hand, which is not the best idea, but you know, yep, there we go, smoke and acrylic. And there we have another piece. Or what should be, oh, come on camera. Another piece, where's my, there. Focus. Come on, focus. Well, we have another piece of plastic that came off because this won't focus. And I think this camera is quite awful at focusing, but zoom out, it should focus a bit better. Come on, there we go. So we cut another notch out of there, and I just got to continue that all the way up the length of this thing, right? And here we go. There's a piece. Small plastic again. But we're doing plastic again. So, get that stretch out again. And go. That's what that's for. Alright, and without stepping on the apparatus down there, I'm going to move up here to the sandpaper. It's 100 grit. And that should knock off these jagged edges pretty quickly. Alright. Not gonna hit. Yeah, closer. Yeah, I think that'll be probably close enough for what I'm doing. And by the way, what I'm doing, I'll show you right now. Alright, and this piece is for this key right here, which as you can see now fits reasonably well. It's about the right size. I'll peel the sticker off and I'll paint it, and we'll see what it looks like. You'll see that in another video. But for now, this wire cutter apparatus, you know, seems to work pretty well. And if I decide to make this more permanent, which I probably might do in a separate video, I'll hook it up into like wooden frame or something with the adjustable temperature control. Probably make a better version of that variable resistor there, and that should be a good project in itself. Alright, so that's it for this foam cutter, acrylic cutter, plastic cutter video. Back to the sub-project of a sub-project, because this is the sub-project of a sub-project of a sub-project.